Hi, I'm Megan with Sincere Shipping, and today I'm going to talk about Port Qasim in Pakistan. You may be wondering, why are we talking about Pakistan? Why is this relevant? People think of Pakistan as in terms of military issues and political issues, but never in terms of the economy, really. And that's really important to take a step back and look at because their economy is really important. They're running one of the largest ports in the world. Port Qasim alone handles about 40% of all external trade in Pakistan. When you combine it with its sister port of Karachi right next to it, it handles, I think, something like 90% of all Pakistani trade. It's really important and it's one of the biggest port complexes in the world. Now, just to go over the history of the port briefly so you can kind of get an idea of where it came from. In the 1970s, the Pakistani prime minister at the time was really pushing for economic developments and reforms. And as part of this, he was trying to promote heavy industry. So they created Pakistan's first steel mill. Now, of course, to manufacture the steel, they had to import a lot of raw materials. And the port of Karachi, which was the only seaport in Pakistan at the time, could barely handle the cargo it was already taking care of. It certainly could not handle importing so many raw materials for steel production. So they created Port Qasim as a purpose-built, specialized port to handle the raw material imports for the steel plant, and it had the added side effect of helping to relieve some of the congestion at the port of Karachi, which was very helpful in terms of streamlining trade in the country. And in terms of the future of Port Qasim, I want to look at two things that really indicate the direction in which Pakistan is going and the direction in which world trade is going. And because both of these demonstrate the move towards larger vessels and integrated communications. The first is what's called the Integrated Cargo Container Control, and that's shortened as IC3. This is a joint venture by Pakistani Customs and U.S. Customs, and it's actually a joint investment, which I think is pretty interesting that Pakistan's putting money into what is essentially a U.S. program that just happens to be benefiting both countries. The purpose of the IC3 program is to enhance international maritime trade security, considering all of the issues that have come into play post 9/11. And the idea is joint screening of U.S.-bound containerized cargo from Pakistan via a live video feed that would be taken care of by Pakistani Customs and U.S. Customs. And what's really interesting about this is that by scanning it on the Pakistani side when it's being exported, we wouldn't have to subject the cargo to another screening upon arrival at the U.S. port of entry. So that would really help everyone in terms of reduced time and enhanced efficiency, probably resulting in some greater cost effectiveness, but that remains to be seen. The goal is to scan 100% of all cargo before it enters U.S. ports. Now, secondly is the issue of dredging. You see across the world today a lot of ports completing dredging projects to be able to accommodate post-Panamax vessels. And one of these ports is Port Qasim, which is really interesting because it shows that Port Qasim is willing to invest, or that Pakistan is willing to invest money in their ports in order to be competitive with the rest of the world. And they recognize that they are a key player in international trade. They're increasing the depth of the port to, I believe, 16 feet. No, 16 meters, sorry. I think it's like 16 meters or something. And they're having some cost problems just like everyone is. I think they've estimated something like $350 million US dollars they need, and they think they only have like 220 million US dollars. But that's not just Port Qasim. That's Savannah and many other ports that are running into this issue of underfunding. And probably part of it's due to this crappy economy, but international trade will certainly help boost the economy. I just want to go over before we end real quick the lines and the services that call Port Qasim, because I work with Port Qasim all the time. I really like using U.S. lines because the rate's great, but I just want to give everyone their options in case they're interested. First, you have CMA. CMA goes to Port Qasim. Then you have MSC, Maersk, Indomex, which covers several lines. That's APL, CMA, another CMA service. Not the one I mentioned originally. OOCL, NYK, and Hapag-Lloyd. And then you have the Middle East North Africa service. That's handled by United Arab Shipping Company. NSCSA, sorry. That's the National Shipping Company of Saudi Arabia. And then there's another Maersk service. So basically your key lines are Maersk, CMA, OOCL, NYK, MSC, for the most part. And ANO. I left that one out. But, kind of just to clarify, Maersk, if you're shipping cars, is a bad idea because generally cargo going to Pakistan is going to have 6 cars in it, and you can't load 6 cars in a Maersk container. So kind of nixes Maersk for the most part. When you look at CMA and U.S. lines and A&L, you have the issue of chassis charges. They charge $15 to $25 per day at U.S. ports to use the chassis. So it tacks on a little bit to the cost, but those particular lines tend to be so competitive with the rate that it makes it worth it. OOCL is higher ocean freight, but if you're concerned about demurrage and detention cost in Pakistan, they do have the lowest detention and demurrage rates. So it really depends on a lot of different factors which line you want to go with. I recommend U.S. lines. Some would recommend OOCL because of the detention and demurrage factor. The only one I would really, really caution against would be MSC and United Arab. I would caution against both of those because they take really long. If you go Savannah to Port Qasim on U.S. lines, it's like 28 days. It's super fast, but take MSC and you're looking at 45-day transit probably. Kind of sucks for everyone involved. One of the major advantages that we have with Port Qasim is that it's really close to the Pakistan National Highway, the National Railway, and also the Jinnah International Airport. So with such an extensive trade network and such a great place in terms of maritime trade, you get all these lines calling it. I mean, that's a pretty expansive list of shipping lines there, more than some U.S. ports have for sure. And certainly the major players being CMA, Maersk, APL, OOCL, the ones we just mentioned. Those aren't little guys. Those are the big companies. So really, Port Qasim is incredible for international trade. It's growing, and the U.S. knows it's growing because we're implementing programs there, namely the IC3. And Pakistan knows it's growing because they're cooperating with IC3, and they're dredging their port, and they recognize their future as an economic superpower, really. They know they have potential, and I know they have potential. So if anyone's interested in exporting to Pakistan, I can definitely give you information. I can even talk to you about different commodities. If you want to ship cars or grain or whatever, I can help you out with developing the contacts and getting where you want to be in terms of exporting to Pakistan. Whatever you want to export, I can help you with. And I think if you have any questions, I will give you the answers. I've worked with Pakistan and Pakistani clients for a very long time, and I've done shipments to Afghanistan via Pakistan, shipments to Pakistan that have stayed in Pakistan. I've dealt with Pakistan throughout all the flooding and the military violence. So I would be more than happy to give anyone advice or some assistance. You can call my office, you can email us, message us on YouTube, or you can visit our website, Facebook, or Twitter pages. I think all that information is listed on our profile page, and I and my staff work around the clock basically. If I'm not available, someone else is. So call us anytime, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.